We are a intentionally, unapologetically Christ-centered university, and I want your listeners to know that that's first and foremost who and what we are. It's not a tagline, it's in our DNA. 80% of our students are in pre-professional programs, but then we also train and educate your mind so you use reason and intellect. So we're actually going to help you learn not what to think, but how to think. And then you bring in your own experience because that's what makes you special and unique.
Hello, Liberty Spenders. Today, we are honored to welcome Dr. Jon Kulaga. He's the 10th president of Indiana Wesleyan University, who brings nearly 4 decades of distinguished experience in higher education and is recognized for his visionary leadership, strategic planning, and commitment to advancing Christ-centered learning. Prior to leading IW, which, by the way, is my alma mater, wearing it here, Dr. Kulaga served as president of Ohio Christian University and held key executive and academic roles at Asbury University and Spring Arbor University. He holds a PhD from Kansas State, a master's from Michigan State, and another bachelor's from Spring Arbor. He's a lifelong learner and an ordained minister, which I didn't know until I read this bio this morning. Dr. Kulaga has shared his insights and faith around the world. He's authored 6 books, and he's an honorary Kentucky colonel, which is a pretty big deal.
It doesn't come with anything.
Exciting. Yeah. It's a cool title, though.
It's a cool title, yeah.
I like it more than the Sagamore or the Wabash, was probably the equivalent here in Indiana. And as you may or may not know, Kristen grew up in Wilmore.
Oh, I did not know that. Okay.
There's an Asbury connection. She always jokes she's one of the few people who lives in Wilmore who had no connection to Asbury University.
That's very few people.
Yes, her dad was the coach of the Jessamine West track team and was a teacher. And so, but anyway, there's an Asbury connection too.
Great.
And that's a cool place, but nothing beats Indiana Wesleyan. Both Chris and I attended, for those of you in the audience who aren't aware of that. Both Chris and I attended. We also have, for the Luidhardts now, we're moving into our 3rd generation, I would think. Is that right? No, it's more. Yes, 2nd generation, because we have my two. I had a sister and a brother who attended Indiana Wesleyan.
Okay.
And now my brother's kids attend. So I guess 3rd generation would be their kids need to attend.
Exactly.
We'll work on that.
Keep them coming. We'll take them.
Yeah, we need a few more years. If the growth of Indiana Wesleyan grows at the rate that it has since my family attended. My sister Teresa came when the entire university was contained within the triangle.
Exactly.
There.
Wow.
And by the time I came, they had already grown quite a bit. Although the newest building on the campus was the music, the shaped as a piano.
Yes.
I don't know what it's called today.
Philippi.
Yes.
Performing Arts Center.
Which now feels like an older building on campus.
Yeah. We're actually we're having to do a little remodeling in there to bring it up to new standards. So yeah.
So a lot of growth. So by the time my kids come, or my brother's kids come, we might see it might be even more expansive. But it's really cool. I wanted to start Dr. Kulaga because I was given a list of some of the cool milestones Indiana Wesleyan has. So I'm in the tank. I'm not a Taylor grad here, so so you guys have hit your highest enrollment in history this year.
Yes, April 25 was our highest institutional enrollment in the history of the school, and we are thrilled about that. That was driven by increases in the campus. We haven't hit the highest campus enrollment. That record still we're working on. But we hit the highest enrollment in our national and global and the highest enrollment in the seminary's history. And when you add all those together, we went over 15,000 and highest enrollment in the school's history. So we're thrilled about that.
As somebody who has a chip on my shoulder about this, and you may too, that makes us the largest private college in the state.
We are the largest private university in the state of Indiana, and I'm often in Indianapolis at the State House reminding our friends that it's not the schools that maybe have a bigger footprint in football That's the largest, but it's Indiana Wesleyan, and they're often surprised by that.
Yeah. Well, I find people, when I tell folks where I go, they'll often don't recognize that. We do have a football program now, and
Yes.
I've gone to the Taylor games the last few years, and we seem to be dominating Taylor at least. So perhaps the football success will lead to greater recognition.
We have not only our football program, we're perennially in the conference championships and go on to postseason. We've not won a national championship in football yet. We're NAIA, but we have a D1 facility, just great facilities and for our players, great program. But just athletics in general. We've had 5 national championships just in the last 3 years. We had 3 in women's volleyball. We just had our cross country national championship. Matter of fact, Saturday was a busy day. I got to pull the banner down, reveal the national banner for volleyball, and then went over to the track meet indoor and revealed the national championship for cross country. And then our very first year in Esports, we won the national championship in Esports. So in 3 short years, we have 5 national championships. But the NAI has a thing called the Learfield Cup, which is the number 1 athletic program in the country. And last month in January, we were number 1 it goes all year, but we're number 1 right now in the running for the Learfield Cup. And that we're always in the first, second, third, or fourth spot. So again, just great athletics.
Esports.
Yeah.
I didn't know Indiana Wesleyan had esports. So this is, what are they playing? This is interesting.
So you win a national championship in esports. Now I'm gonna quickly get out of my depth here. So what I tell parents is, I said, now, if you think that we're giving your son or daughter a scholarship to come to college and play video games, what you need to know is that's exactly what we're doing. Because that's what esports is. The one game that we play multiple games, but the game that we won the national championship in is called Valor, or Valorant. And you play all over the nation, because obviously with esports you don't travel. We have a setup. It's a very, very large conference room where we just put in great fast servers and great seats and chairs, and they play Michigan State, they play school USC, they play schools from all over the country, because they can stay in Marion at the Student Center and play online. But it's a growing program, and we're very excited, and it brings us great students. A lot of these students are computer science majors. They're people who are interested in technology, so they're not only great esports athletes, but they're also great students.
Well, I actually met my very first ever esports professional athlete over the weekend, and he was talking to me a little bit about this business, and I thought, well, this is a much bigger business than I thought it was.
Yes. Yeah. My oldest son has grown up, was interested in that, and Cloud9 was his team. But a professional esports player can make well into the seven digits, millions. Yeah.
This gentleman was recruited in high school to play, and had, was making money on Twitch and all this other stuff. So, but I didn't know Indiana Wesleyan did it. That's really cool. What else is going on at Indiana Wesleyan that's sort of at the vanguard of what you're trying to do? This is a good time I know all about Indiana Wesleyan because I attended there.
Right.
But for my audience, there'll be some people from out of state. They don't know Indiana Wesleyan, or they might be familiar with a college like Ohio Wesleyan, which is very different than Indiana Wesleyan. And so give a little bit of what is Indiana Wesleyan? What do they stand for? What makes Indiana Wesleyan unique?
Yeah, what often happens with Indiana Wesleyan is we get compared to other Christian colleges that don't have some of the other components we have. So they'll look at our campus in Marion, which is about 2,100 students, and it looks very similar to other Christian colleges in Indiana because they also have a campus. So we have a beautiful 300-acre campus. Really, the entire campus has been rebuilt since the 1990s because Indiana Wesleyan got into the adult degree completion program, and we were able to really just raze every building that was originally Marian College and rebuild the entire campus. So the campus is gorgeous, beautiful facilities. But on top of the 2,100 students who live and attend, we also have over 12,000 students in our online programs and over 714 students in our seminary. So the campus students actually get a very big lift and benefit from the revenue generated by our online programs. But we are a intentionally, unapologetically Christ-centered university. And I want your listeners to know that that's first and foremost who and what we are. It's not a tagline. It's in our DNA. We are owned by the Wesleyan Church of North America. We belong to that denomination, but we kind of lead with the fact that we're unapologetically Christ-centered. Then we lead into the fact that we have phenomenal academics, our faculty with PhDs. They do research, but that's who we are. So we have the campus residential experience for students who are wanting that. We have online, and then we have the seminary. But we are also, one of the things I'm really excited about is that we are now, when I came 3.5 years ago, it was apparent that we had to, in some way, look at how are we going to continue to grow and innovate. And so we're actually starting a vocational trade school coming up this summer. So that's just another way that Indiana Wesleyan intentionally tries to serve the state of Indiana and the nation while also being innovative in our programming.
If you're listening to this show, it's probably because you understand something most people don't. Marketing to Liberty spenders isn't just about ads or tactics, it's about trust. And in the real world, trust moves through relationships. And that's why private introductions and deal flow are such a core part of what we do.
So FastPass is a private introduction and deal flow network for Christian and conservative leaders who already have influence and want to scale fast. It's not open networking, it's intentional introductions between people who already share alignment. We've seen one client land a $25,000 opportunity from a single introduction. Another told us that FastPass has become his largest source of referrals, not because of volume, but because of fit. And yet another closed her equity round at a key moment just due to the right introduction.
When you book a one-to-one consult with us, we're not handing you a list or making big promises. Instead, we're having a real conversation about what you're building, who you want to meet, and whether FastPass makes sense for this season for you. So no pressure, no hustle, and no awkward pitch from us.
Yeah. If you're ready to grow through relationships instead of forcing everything on your own, head to libertyspenders.com/FastPass and book a one-to-one consult with us.
In worst case, you leave with clarity. Best case, the right introductions change the trajectory of what you're building.
Okay, back to the episode.
So I would second the Christ-centered nature of somebody who was there. Some other colleges, like I grew up in Ohio, are more traditionally faith connected, like Ohio Wesleyan, originally associated with the Methodist Church, but now that's more of a tradition than it is a focus of the university. Whereas at Indiana Wesleyan, I was going to chapel as part of my education. I had Old Testament, New Testament class, and always we're talking in every class, talking about the implications of what is Christ, what does the Bible have to say about this topic as well.
Well, the integration of faith and learning is just foundational to what we do. And that's not a devotional at the beginning of class. It is I interview every full-time faculty member to hear them talk about their relationship with Jesus Christ. And there are schools that, like Ohio Wesleyan, Illinois Wesleyan, that have the same, it looks like we're part of the same triad. We're at Indiana Wesleyan. Those two schools were not connected in any way, shape, or form. I think that's been part of their past. It's been a tradition, but we're still very deeply connected to our denomination, which is the Wesleyan Church, not the United Methodist Church. And that drives our lifestyle commitments as well.
Yeah. And I imagine that, making a dedication to being Christ-centered and cultivating a Christ-centered community comes with its own set of challenges. How do we do that? You got a lot of kids coming in. Many of them come from different backgrounds, different households. They all sign some kind of, I signed a covenant of sorts when I came, but not everybody comes as a even born again Christians. So how do you work on that at the university?
Yeah. There are two ways that schools approach this. There are some schools that are covenantal schools like Cedarville and Wheaton, where you have to sign a statement of faith proclaiming that you're a Christian. Indiana Wesleyan is not a covenantal school. We take non-Christians, but we have you sign a statement that you will live within our lifestyle guidelines and respect the fact that we are a Christ-centered Christian university. So you will attend chapel. You will take New Testament. You will take Old Testament. We are a dry campus. There's no drinking, no smoking, no weed. So you have to live within. And in our goal, our hope is that while you're here, you will encounter and see Christ lived out. You'll see Jesus with skin on in the life of the faculty and other students. I said we had 2,100 students and they need to go to chapel, but we have to earn their chapel credits, but 1,500 of our students are also involved in small groups. Yeah. We have a very strong discipleship focus. Our whole athletic program revolves around the idea of I am third. Jesus first, others second, I am third. So you can't be on the campus 24 hours without feeling this ethos that it's real.
Yeah. I also know that, having a Christ-centered education is important. It has its own challenges. Also, just from what little I know about higher education has also been going through a lot of evolution, particularly post-COVID. So what are some of the challenges that are presented as, post-COVID, and how does Indiana Wesleyan address them?
There's some standard ones that you hear about. If you follow higher ed or trends, you'll know that there's been talk for many years. We've seen it coming for birth rates called the demographic cliff. Yep. When we had the economic downturn in 2007, 2008, 2009, people decided to have less kids. 18 years later is now 25, 26, 27. Those kids are supposed to be graduating and coming to college, but they weren't born. So no matter how good you are recruiting, you can't recruit kids that weren't born. So there's just less kids graduating from high school because there's just less kids. Secondly, in Indiana, but nationally, there is a perceived lack of return on investment in colleges. Just generally, people are now questioning the value of a college education. Although every statistic would bear out that if you graduate from college with a bachelor's degree over your lifetime, you'll earn $1 million more than someone who just has a high school diploma. And in master's, it's higher, and doctorate, it's higher. So the feeling of ROI is more of a feeling. But in Indiana, only 52% of students graduating from high school are interested in post-secondary education. 48% have no plans of going on to college. So we have less people graduating, but 48% are looking at either the military, trying to enter the workforce, or going into the trades. So you have those challenges. But interestingly, Kurt, those schools that stay true to their mission and almost double down on it, not in a legalistic way, but say, we're not going to wash out and dilute who we are. Parents are looking for that. There's nothing more frustrating for a parent to look for an authentically Christ-centered university and find that where a child arrived on a campus and it was more marketing than true. They want to know that, are you really Christian? Are you really Christ-centered? Do you really stand for truth? Do you believe in objective truth? And those schools that have done that have seen an upturn in their enrollment. Because I think it's and we don't do it for marketing. We do it because it's who we are. But I think parents have woken up to the fact, or have awakened to the fact, that not all marketing is truth. And, it's probably safer, if you are a believer, in some ways, to send your child to a state school that makes no affirmation whatsoever of faith, so you know what you're getting, than to go to a school that professes something that actually isn't true. My preference is the third alternative, which is send your child to a school that is authentically Christ-centered and actually walks the talk.
So I have some people I know who have opted out of college, and sometimes I think it's a little bit more based on a degree. Maybe one degree is less. People spent some time getting degrees that weren't as valuable, perhaps. I see what I got out of going to college was not interesting. Wasn't always the thing that you go there for.
Yes,
I got a political science and history degree from Dr. Martin, who was head of the department when I was there. Going and getting a political science degree was like getting a master's in psychology.
Yes,
maybe not psychology, but I learned all about ideology and formation, and I read more Francis Schaeffer in 4 years than I probably anyone else.
Exactly.
And so I walked away with a lot of political understanding of how people think. So maybe it's,
right.
Which was very powerful. And I've used those tools regularly. But,
what I try to tell people is also to understand that if you go to a state school, for instance, they have, because of their ideology, separation of church and state, their interpretation of that, they have had to eliminate anything that is religious in nature from the curriculum. Right. If you come to a Christ-centered institution, we study the same things, but then we critique it through the lens of Scripture. So you will get a much broader, deeper education at a Christian university, because it's not that if you come to Indiana Wesleyan as a psychology major, you won't learn about Skinner or Freud or those types of leading thought psychologists, but we'll take on the idea of tabula rasa. Are humans really a blank slate, or are we born with a bent towards sinning? What does Scripture say about the idea of the blank slate? How does that play out? So you'll study the same people and things that the state university does, but then you'll get that extra critique of what Scripture and the biblical worldview has to say about that. So you'll get a much richer, deeper, broader education at a Christian college than you would at a state university.
Yeah, that's not something I've thought of in the same way, but that makes a lot of sense, because that was exactly my experience. We covered religious thinkers like Francis Schaeffer, but we also learned about Rousseau. We also learned about Marx, and left. Dr. Martin's thing was you needed to understand what people believe better than they do. That was his credo, Yeah,
so. I went to a liberal arts school, a Christian liberal arts school. I studied Rousseau. I was I've taught in education. I also got 2 degrees from state schools that were enamored with Rousseau, but it was only through my private Christian college experience reading that I found out what a train wreck Rousseau was. And he had, children he didn't want to raise, and he was just an absolute immoral person. But you never hear that side of we studied Rousseau. But we studied all of Rousseau, not just, his favorite theories, and somehow he's been whitewashed for a lot of people. So it's you got to see the whole package, and you get that at Indiana Wesleyan.
Yeah. Now you come from a background in higher ed, but you also are an ordained minister. Talk to me a little bit about your journey of how you got from where you are today. And of course, the most important job in the United States, president at Indiana Wesleyan, to but how did you get here? How did it start? Did you always think you might be in higher education? How did that all evolve?
No, it was an evolving calling. I was in high school, I was going to be an architect, and for no other good reason than that my older brother was going to be one. And he went on to school to be an architect and draftsman. And I was good at math. I was good at drawing. I'm a visual, conceptual person. So I thought, well, that's what I'll do. Going into the senior year of high school, I felt called into ministry very clearly, and changed my whole trajectory, and decided to go into youth ministry in obedience to that calling. Went to our denominational school, and got a degree in philosophy, religion, ministry, and became a youth pastor out in Kansas. The church I landed in was a college church. It had a college across the street. So on top of the 7th through 12th graders, it was a church of about 1,000, and I had 100, 150 in my youth group. The church said, well, will you teach the college Sunday school class? So after my first year there, I started teaching the college Sunday school class. And over a couple of years, I felt like I really like this age. It's not, I loved, it wasn't that I didn't like 7th graders. I loved them individually. It's just, when you put 40 of them in a room.
Right.
So I felt more and more my calling was towards not the pulpit, but towards Christian higher ed and the college students. So after 4 years, my wife and I moved back to Michigan, and we went into student affairs. And I spent a career in student affairs, got my master's, got my doctorate. And I have bounced around all within Christian higher ed. I've been a vice president of student affairs. I've been a vice president for advancement and marketing, fundraising. I've been a vice president, chief academic officer, provost, chief operations officer in the academic area, faculty member. And then, about 10 years ago was the sense that, I'm ready, I think, to try this president thing, having been on multiple cabinets and seen multiple presidents, and hopefully serve them well. And that's when I became the president in Ohio, was there for 5 years, and then came to Indiana Wesleyan. So a varied career, sort of ADHD career, but all within
Right.
Christian higher education. It wasn't like in and out, in and out. It was just different areas.
Yeah.
And I loved each of them. I loved each of them for different reasons, but each one I loved it for that season.
Yeah. So what was the most surprising thing after you got your job at Indiana Wesleyan and you started the job? What was the most unexpected idiosyncrasy about IW?
Well, there is always something different when I worked at Asbury. It's not connected to any denomination whatsoever. It's completely independent. When you land in a denominational school, that's owned by a denomination, everybody is in some ways related to another person. Whether through marriage or kids or grandfather. And, so you bump into, and no matter where you go in Marion, of course, if you're at Myers or Hobby Lobby, there's always somebody who remembers or sees you or knows you. And, so, it's a little bit of it's more of a glass bubble perhaps than if you're working at an independent school. And that was certainly something, but we live on campus. So we live in the president's house on campus. So we are right there with the students. You can walk right up to our front door. I mean, we're part of the campus community, and we actually really love that. We love that. My wife and I sometimes will be on the back deck. Wednesday nights in the fall, the marching band gets to use the actual football field in preparation for Saturday's game. And so Wednesday night, sometimes we'll be out and we'll hop on we're only 400 yards from the football field. So we'll hop in the golf cart and drive over, and we'll sit in the stands and watch the volleyball or the marching band, practice. And it's just that accessibility, and availability is something that we've just thoroughly enjoyed these 4 years that we've been here.
Yeah. Well, I always remember the weird experience of running into a professor at Meijer, right? Or Walmart. I still remember to this day one instance of running into Dr. Martin, and he was at Walmart, and I thought he only existed on campus, and
they have a life. They have a life.
Yeah, I know. He's not supposed to, And you've also spoken at different places, spoken at different places around the world. You've authored some books. What was the nature when you were speaking internationally?
It varies. I've been to Japan and China. Those were primarily with folks who grew up in the mission field, and they were taking me back. We were making connections with higher education, with the church. In China, it was the underground church. looking for avenues to allow students to come. And when they find out you're a preacher, they make the assumption that you're ready to preach. So you're given those opportunities spontaneously. I was on a focused mission trip with my son in Haiti, and which is with the Free Methodist Church up in Spring Arbor. And they found out again that I was the pastor. Well, there's a Free Methodist seminary in Port-au-Prince, and we were several miles out of Port-au-Prince working out, building some homes, but they found out that I was a minister, so they wanted me to come back and preach and teach a lesson on the Wesleyan quadrilateral to the Wesleyan the seminaries, which was really interesting because I spoke in English, and the person they had there had to hear me in English and translate it into the French Creole language of the Haitian seminary students. And then when they asked a question, the interpreter had to hear it in French Creole and then interpret it back to English into me. So it was a little telegraph game. But those are some of the opportunities. And when we went to Mexico, I've been to Mexico 5 times. Same thing. The churches love to have you there. They call you up. They want you to either share testimony. And it's embarrassing, but there's usually always somebody there who can translate your English into Spanish, but I can't. They have to translate their Spanish back to me in English. But tell you what it does. It just gives you a glimpse of how massively diverse heaven's going to be. And there are people there. I've encountered people who have absolutely nothing in terms of material goods, but they have the joy of the Lord. They are happy in the Lord, and they're generous with what they have, embarrassingly generous with what they have, and humbling experience.
One of the things that I had read when we were preparing for this is that you're also a bit of an outdoorsman.
A bit.
Yeah. Hiking, biking, fly fishing, and golfing.
But I wouldn't call myself a hiker, a biker, or a fly fisherman, or a golfer. I mean, I guess my wife and I love to hike. We love to bike. There, if you're in Indianapolis, the Monon Trail, and it goes for miles and miles, and you can hop on the trail way north of Indy and just go all the way down into Indy and back. We love going through the Monon Trail, through Westfield and through Broad Ripple and that whole Carmel, that whole area. So we love doing that. And then my youngest son, went through a little bit of a existential crisis with career, and he decided to drop out of college. He was a phenomenal fly fisherman. So he went out to Montana and became an Orvis fly guide, certified fly guide, and he got me into it. It was actually an excuse for me to spend time with him. Yeah. I love being there's floating and there's wading. I love wading. I love being in the river, and he's phenomenal. And I take him with me because when you get that bird's nest of fly line, you gotta have somebody who can cut it off and redo it, without wasting 3 hours on the shore. And he just does it. So he's the one that got me into fly fishing, and he decided not to be a guide. He went back to school and graduated, but he's the one that got me into fly fishing, and we really enjoy that. And golf, I'm a summer league golfer. We have a summer league in Marion every Wednesday night, 9 holes. Show up at we have a course. Indiana Wesleyan has its own course, Arbor Trace, and it's 20, 30 guys Wednesday night, and it's just a great outlet for me. I'm not offering to give anybody lessons. I wouldn't do that to your game.
Yeah. Well, I could probably count on one hand the amount of times I've been golfing. I think maybe I don't have the patience for it. When I have done it, my rules have been, we don't keep score, and we're okay picking up the ball and throwing it in the general direction of the right spot. That makes it more fun for me.
Yeah, I'm not big into wokeism, but I've heard recently of woke golf, which is where you hit the ball and you go pick it up and then you put the ball where you feel it should be.
Well, I guess that might be the one place where I'm in alignment with sort of the woke approach to things, because I've done it that way before.
All right, there you go.
It reduces my stress. And then 38 years married?
Yes, working on 39. June 13th will be 39.
Yes, 4 kids. How is all the, as somebody who's led different colleges, you probably moved around a few times during that time. How's all that worked? How have you kept the family together, the marriage strong in the middle of, bopping around, working at different, very important and probably high profile, time consuming jobs?
Yeah, I have a remarkable wife. One year I met her, she was just about ready to graduate college when I moved to Kansas to be the youth pastor, and we got married, and I moved her away from her family, and we've lived away from her family the 95% of our married life. And she has just been a tremendous partner and helpmate. And she's taught elementary school, but really making family the priority. For both she and I, we came from wonderful parents, and just making the fact that if you're going to be married, you got to make your marriage the number one priority. And if you're going to have kids, then your kids in your marriage have to have priority over whatever job you have. And so just doing whatever you have to be at your kids' games. If you can coach, show up at the parent-teacher conferences, be involved, just work around as much as you can. We've actually felt like raising our kids, as I've worked in 5 different Christian colleges, our kids have had the campus as their playground. So they've always had phenomenal pools, phenomenal gyms, great tracks, because I've had keys to everything. So, and just, the support of a Christian community. There's always usually a strong Christian church attached to these Christian colleges. And so we've had faith community, we've had faculty, staff, great campus. It's been a great way to raise your kids, but you're right. We've moved around a lot. And so the core has to be the family. You have to make sure that you're focusing in on the family, because sometimes it's just the 6 of you. There's no family around. You're moving into a town and you're the stranger, and everybody's related in some way. It's just the 6 of you. So we got to hang together, and she's done a tremendous job in leading in that respect.
Yeah. Well, I know that's so powerful. Chris and I are hitting 21 years, which makes me feel a little old.
Yeah.
21 years last year, will be 22 years this year. But it's a joy to have a marriage that works and brings a lot of satisfaction to life. Well,
it helps when you marry your best friend.
Yes. So when you look for the right characteristics, Well, as we come to an end, we always ask the same 3 questions of every guest. We call this our lightning round. The idea, if we can pull it off, is 3 questions about 90 seconds each. And the first one is probably the hardest to get done in 90 seconds, but it's about legacy and what kind of legacy you'd like to leave behind, particularly from your work at Indiana Wesleyan University. Yeah.
You think about that sometimes. I am assuming that when you leave, people talk about presidents, because since I've arrived, people talked about presidents.
Yes.
I want them, so I want them to say that, and not just me, it's my team. It's not me, but I want people to feel like when I was here, I kept the university strong on its mission. We didn't drift from our mission. I don't want that to ever be said about my administration, is that we got a little lost in the weeds and we got a little wrong in some of our values. So strong missional focus. He left us in great financial stability. And what that means is he grew multiple enrollment streams and he grew multiple financial streams. So we are starting businesses. We have different buildings that we have are leasing, and so those are bringing in revenue. And starting the vocational school. Being an innovator is great. I'm an innovator. I have more ideas than I could possibly live out. But at the end of the day, I want people to feel like he actually left us way better than when he found us. And he set up the next man or woman to be president. I've told people multiple times, I really feel like I'm serving the next president. When they walk in, I want not deferred maintenance. I want strong faculty. I want to be mission fit. I don't want them to worry about survivability or viability when they walk in the door.
Yeah, that's powerful. But now for something completely different, and we may have hit on it a little bit, but I like to give people 90 seconds. This is always get an interesting answer on any topic that's been interesting you lately. Just needs to be off topic. So maybe it's a hobby, spiritual insight, good book, sports team you're a big fan of, something that's really got you going down the rabbit hole.
Well, this is something that I'm not deeply knowledgeable about, but it's the rabbit hole I'm in. And that is, we are preparing a multi-million-dollar grant proposal for Lilly in the whole area of AI. And I think AI is one of those, we are in one of those transformational moments, probably not even akin to the internet, probably akin more to the Industrial Revolution or the Gutenberg press in terms of, we are now at a point where we can take electricity and turn it into intelligence. Right. And not human intelligence, it's artificial intelligence, but people are adapting and using it at a rate that's never been seen before, way faster than the iPhone, cell phone, way faster than the internet. It's literally hitting every single industry. There's no industry that will be untouched. And what we're finding is that the highest paid people are getting the greatest exposure to AI, and rural communities are sort of being left behind. I remember years and years and years after we got the internet, they were still trying to talk about connectivity for the internet in rural communities. And the same thing is happening with artificial intelligence. And not only is it hitting the high-paying jobs, but again, people who are learning about AI is directly correlated to those who go to college. So those people who send their kids to college are getting exposed to not only just the tools of AI, but the ethics of AI, what you should and should not do. So I think this whole AI thing, it's not a bandwagon. It's one of those things that we need to handle. We need to embrace it, but we need to embrace it ethically, morally, spiritually. It's fire can drive a locomotive and do great things on a train. It can also burn you. But it's something that's a rabbit hole that I'm in right now. Yeah.
Well, it's an important one right now to be in. The last thing we want to do, this is easy for you. 90-second pitch for Indiana Wesleyan. Let's assume people didn't listen to anything else you said, but they're the kinds of people who might have a student who's looking at colleges. What's the best 90-second pitch for who should be looking at Indiana Wesleyan? Who's a great fit? Why they should attend? How do they find you?
Well, you find us at www.indwes.edu. So that would be the most important thing to look us up. We're on social media. We're on the internet. The 90-second pitch is, if you're looking for a university that is, I want you to visualize a baseball field. Home plate is Scripture. We start with the authority of Scripture. That is it's not just a worldview that we talk about. It's our worldview. So you start at home plate. The next thing we do is we go through 2,000 years of church history, and these are things that are important to us. We will teach you from a Christian worldview that has been true, that all Christians have believed for 2,000 years, regardless of your discipline. We have over 200 majors. 80% of our students are in pre-professional programs. But then we also train and educate your mind. So you use reason and intellect. What do you think? How do you think about these things? So we're actually going to help you learn not what to think, but how to think. And then you bring in your own experience, because that's what makes you special and unique. But all of that has to get back to home plate, because you don't score any runs if you stay on second or third base. You got to get back to Scripture and find out what is really real and truly true. And Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And what's true for you is true for you, and what's true for me is true for me is a lie. because that doesn't mean there's any truth. There
Right.
are things that are true. And we believe those things, we teach those things, but then we also show you how God can use your particular gifting and your particular skill set to make an impact for the kingdom. And if you want a school that can help you do that, then Indiana Wesleyan University is your school.
Well, that's awesome. It's been great to have you on. And for people who are listening, double back and head over to www.indwes.edu and check out Indiana Wesleyan. I give it my endorsement, however much that matters, hopefully to my listeners quite a bit. And for those of you listening, thank you so much for giving us 30, 45 minutes of your day.
Yeah, thank you.
It's super flattering to know that people take time to listen to us. But if you want to hear more, make sure you click like or subscribe, whether you're watching on YouTube or Apple, so you're always finding our new content. And if you want to learn more about what we're doing, check us out at www.libertyspenders.com. Thank you, and until next time,